happens, Duryodhana and Shakuni, they called a man named Purochana, who was like an architect and a builder. And they told him to build a beautiful palace out of totally flammable materials. The types of materials, if you put a single little flame, just a tiny little flame, it will immediately go into fire within seconds. So Purochana went to Radhanath and he started building this palace. He built it really fast. And every article that was being put in this building was soaked in flammable oils, like lac. It was called the House of Lac. He would soak the bricks in lac. They were just saturated. Then he built the house like that, and he painted over it. And he put lac in the paint, too. With whatever type of paint they used in those days. I don't know. It was probably organic paint. It was definitely organic. They didn't have chemicals in those days. It was organic paint. But the lac was organic too, I guess. But it was very... That house was just built to burn. And then he put all these pots of ghee all over the place to make it look auspicious. And then he got some sort of natural fragrance to cover to make it really sweet smelling. And it was built. Meanwhile, as Yudhisthira and the Pandavas with Kunti, as they were leaving Hastinapur to go on their vacation, Dhritarashtra said, please enjoy. And Duryodhana said, oh, you will have so much fun there. It's such a nice place. Vidura spoke in a language that nobody could understand. He spoke a very simple tribal language. But Yudhisthira understood so many languages. But more than that, Yudhisthira could understand people's hearts. And Vidura said some little poetic line that was really confusing to people who heard it. He said something like, beware of weapons that are meant for your destruction, that are not made out of steel or any hard material. What does that mean? And beware of that which can consume even straw and wood, but cannot harm a person who's in a hole in the ground. Something like that. And then he said, one who controls their mind and senses can never be conquered. So Kunti asked Yudhisthira, what does that mean? Yudhisthira later told that Vidura has told us that they're going to try to burn us alive. And Vidura sent some of his messengers to the Pandavas. They lived in Varanavata for some time. Should I continue the story or should I? No! Okay. And meanwhile, the house was being completed. And they were living. When they arrived at Varanavata, all the people there were cheering and celebrating because everyone loved the Pandavas. And this is what was really embroiling the envy of Duryodhana, that everybody loved them. Wherever Duryodhana would go, people would, yes, master, yes, master. But wherever Yudhisthira would go is, oh, we'll do anything for you. We'll give everything for you. Duryodhana wanted what Yudhisthira had. He had the love of the people. He wasn't just respected, he was loved. Duryodhana was feared. And by his manipulations, by his incredibly intelligent organization and engineering, he had control, he had the fear of the people, but he couldn't get their love and truth and the respect of their hearts. And that's what greatness is. To actually be loved, not feared. And if we fear somebody with love, that's all right too. But when our love goes beyond fear, that's more high, that's deeper. So when Yudhishthira was leaving Hastinapur, everyone was saying goodbye with such love, and Duryodhana, just wait till he burns alive. He was so enthusiastic. And when Yudhishthira Maharaj came to Varanavata, all the citizens, every single citizen came and celebrated his arrival. And eventually the house was built. And Yudhishthira Maharaj told the Pandavas what happened. Bhima said, we shouldn't go there. Why are we going to live there? They want to burn us alive. And Yudhishthira Maharaj said, no, we should live there. We will escape. Let them think we're dead. He had his plan. And Vidura kept sending him messages and help. And they dug an underground tunnel. And on an Amavasya, a new moon night, that was the time destined for the house to be put on fire. And they got that message. And they escaped from an underground fire. And the house blazed. And everyone thought that Kunti and her sons were dead. And when the news came, Dhritarashtra started crying. And Duryodhana started crying. And everyone was crying. And they were giving all these tributes of honor to the Pandavas. Just to make it sound like they were compassionate, well-wishing, loving. And they were grieving. But actually in their hearts, they were really, really celebrating. They're dead. Now everything is ours. How is that? Such envy. And it's interesting because Duryodhana is the grandson of Vyasadeva, who's the literary incarnation of Bhagavan, Sri Krishna. How could he be in such a state? Duryodhana was being brought up in the presence of Bhishma, Mahajan, Vidura, a Paramhamsa. But still he made these choices. He was so duplicitous. But Vidura could see it all. And Bhishma could see it all. But Vidura was happy that the Pandavas were safe. And they went into hiding for some time. And because time's up, I can't say too much more. But many incredible things happened at that time. They went to Ekachakra. And there they were living incognito. All the Kurus thought that they were dead, but Vidura knew what was going on. He knew they were safe. There was funerals and everything for them. In Ekachakra, the story of Bakasura. Baka was a really powerful person. But Bhima Actually, I won't tell that story. But Baka was such a demon. He demanded on a regular basis that the people of Ekachakra brought him a huge wagon load of food. And as the dessert, he would eat the charioteer who drove it. So he would eat an entire wagon load of food and then eat the driver. And he was like one of these mafia kind of people. Either you give me this or I'm going to terrorize your entire village. So it's like they were paying him off. So rather than every one of the children being subject to be killed by him, they would just send one on intervals with the wagon. So the place where the Pandavas were staying with Kunti, the mother was crying, and Kunti said, "What's happening?" They said, "It's chosen that our son has to drive the wagon to Bakasura. That means he's going to be eaten alive." And Kunti said, "No problem. I'll send my son instead. I have Bhima." And the lady, she said, no, I can't tell you to sacrifice your son for my son. I only have one son. Kunti said, "I have 5, no problem." So Kunti convinced her, and Bhima drove the whole chariot. Big, giant, huge amount of food. And Bhima was really, really expert. He went right up to where Bakasura was waiting, and right in front of Bakasura, Bhima ate everything. This really made him angry, and Bakasura attacked Bhima while he was eating. Bhima he couldn't care less about this Baka. With his right hand, he was eating, and with his left hand, he was just pushing him away until he finished everything. Then after he finished everything, he washed his hands and he finished Baka. Kunti understood her son. And it was in that same Ekachakra that Lord Nityananda Prabhu, about 4,500 years later, took his birth there, in the place where the Pandavas resided. And soon after that, there was the wonderful pastime where Draupadi chose Arjuna to be her husband at a Swayamvara. And Arjuna came back and told Kunti Devi, "I brought a wonderful gift." And Kunti Devi said, "Whatever valuable thing you have, you must always share with your brothers." Arjuna said, "It's a wife." Kunti, whatever she said couldn't go in vain. So under these extraordinary circumstances, Draupadi married all the 5 Pandavas. And there was no envy among them, because they loved each other so much. And they loved her so much, and she loved them so much. And Kunti was, even though they were in exile, they were under persecution, they were being dishonored, they were being blasphemed. For the Pandavas, it was painful, especially when it's your own family doing this to you, in your own house. It's one thing when enemies from an outside camp are attacking you, but when your own family, your own purpose, very painful. And of everyone, Kunti suffered the most. And later on in this great tournament, when Arjuna was winning everything, Dronacharya had this special tournament like the graduation ceremony of from his school. And there were the Kurus and the Pandavas. And Arjuna was just mesmerizing everyone with his skills. And suddenly, an unknown person enters the arena. And he excels Arjuna in everything. Who is this person? Nobody knew who he was, except Kunti. She saw the earrings and the chest plate of gold that he had. She understood this was her firstborn son, Karna. And instantly he became worst enemies with Arjuna. And instantly Duryodhana saw that here is somebody more powerful than my rival, and he won over Karna and started giving him gifts and made him the king of a province. Everything Karna could possibly want, Duryodhana was giving him. He lavished him so much that Karna was totally obliged to him. And Kunti couldn't tell anyone. But as soon as she saw him, she fainted. And Vidura immediately understood this must be her son. He was so intelligent. So after the Pandavas and Kunti Devi returned to Hastinapur, the word got out that they were actually still alive. The Kurus, headed by Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra, they grieved when they were performing the last rites, the funeral for the Pandavas. At least they pretended to, although in their hearts they were jubilant. But when the Pandavas came back, externally they were celebrating. The Pandavas are still alive. Look, they're still alive. But in their hearts they were grieving. They were immediately thinking of other methods to destroy them. But when they returned, Krishna, who was in Dwarka, heard about the Pandavas' return. And he came there to meet them. And in this particular verse we're reading today, Satyaki comes with Krishna. He's a very senior elder person. And the Pandavas are receiving them with such honor and respect. And how Krishna is reciprocating with each person according to their particular relationship with him. Because Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. And higher than the infinite peace of Brahman realization is the infinite intimacy of love, of prema. Krishna is conquered by the love of his devotees. Yudhisthira is older than Krishna. And so is Bhima. So Krishna is bowing down to Yudhisthira and touching his feet. And Yudhisthira Maharaj, even though he knows Krishna is his beloved Lord, the cause of all causes, the absolute truth, the controller of all controllers, the king of kings, the father of Brahma, the source of Mahavishnu. Yudhisthira knows this. But Krishna wants to exchange love with him in this way. So Yudhisthira Maharaj is blessing Krishna. And Krishna's touching his feet. But it's all with such intimate love. And then Arjuna, who's Krishna's same age, out of etiquette, they're embracing as friends. And Nakula and Sahadev, they're younger, they're touching Krishna's feet, and Krishna's blessing them. And Krishna's bowing down to Vidura and the elders, and they're blessing him. In this way, there's this intimate exchange of love that Krishna's facilitating according to a particular person's relationship with him. And as Krishna's sitting on a beautiful seat, he sees Queen Kunti coming. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrideshya arjuna tishtati. The Lord is within the heart of everyone. He knows our every thought. He knows our every feeling intimately. He hears our every word. He sees our every action. So Krishna knows Kunti's heart, what she has been going through. Krishna's his aunt. Krishna touches her feet, and Kunti embraces him as her own nephew. And Kunti's asking Krishna about all the people of the Yadu dynasty in Dwarka. This is Kunti's nature, what she's going through. But she's so concerned with Krishna and so concerned with others. And it is described in this beautiful verse today. The Lord then went to see his aunt, Queen Kunti. He bowed down to her, and she embraced him, her eyes moist with great affection. Lord Krishna inquired from her and her daughter-in-law, Draupadi, about their welfare, and they in turn questioned him at length about his relatives in Dwarka. Kunti worshipped Krishna, and Krishna worshipped Kunti. Krishna knows past, present, and future. In the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we read the prayers of Queen Kunti. And we will end our class today with a reflection on her state of consciousness. It is said, Srila Prabhupada explained, a proverb from Bengal, that the mother-in-law will teach the daughter-in-law through instructing the daughter. Does that make sense to you? Because the daughter-in-law is kind of strange in the house. Because in India, traditionally, there are joint families. So the mother-in-law doesn't want to disturb the daughter-in-law, because the daughter-in-law doesn't know how to do anything in that house. So if she's just correcting her, the daughter-in-law is going to feel really depressed and like she's doing everything wrong. And a loving mother-in-law will never do that to the daughter-in-law. I'm instructing you mother-in-laws at this point. There's sensitivity, there's affection. So the mother-in-law will affectionately instruct the daughter. And the daughter, she's used to living in the house, no problem. She knows my mother loves me. By instructing the daughter-in-law learns everything without hurting her, without making her feel inferior. It's a science of respect and affection within a household. So in the same way, Krishna teaches the world through his loving devotees. And Kunti was his loving devotee. Krishna would touch her feet and bow down to her. Yet Kunti went through so many tragedies in her life. Her motherly heart. What happened to Karna? What happened to her children? What happened to her beloved daughter-in-law Draupadi when she was being stripped by Dushasana? All these situations Kunti had to bear and tolerate. But in the end, she prayed to Krishna. Vipadashantu tashashva tatra tatra jagat guru. Let these calamities come again and again. Because when they come, I remember you. I have no one else to turn to except you. And in remembering you, I am beyond birth and death. Tate nukampam susamikshamano bunjana evatma kritam vibhagam. Lord Brahma offered this prayer to Krishna. That when to that devotee who even in the most difficult, trying situations turns to you with a humble and grateful heart, that person alone is fit for the highest liberation. It's not a matter of how little we can eat or how little we can sleep, although we shouldn't waste our time eating too much or sleeping too much. The reason we don't eat a lot or sleep a lot is not because we want to show everybody how renounced we are. It's because we want to extend our gratitude to Krishna by utilizing every moment of our time in serving him and remembering him and loving him. It's for that purpose. Brahmacharis living in the ashram, they don't renounce the opportunity for families and everything and property so that people will see that they're great ascetics. They come here so that they can utilize their full energy and their full minds in loving devotional service. Grihastas, they don't give in great charity to help elevate people's consciousness so that they will be honored and esteemed. They're doing it because they understand everything they have belongs to God. Let me use it for that purpose. This is bhakti. But if in the end, whatever spiritual activities we do, what actually makes us fit for the highest liberation is through our association, through our sadhana, through our seva, we come to the state of consciousness where even when great challenges and setbacks come in our lives, and they will, whoever we are, we can turn to God with gratitude and give our hearts to him. That was Kunti Devi's example. And that is why Krishna is touching her feet. Not just because of the formality that she's his aunt, but Krishna wants to show the world how he worships those devotees who always remember him in love in any situation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us. Kunti herself, she prayed to Krishna in her prayers. Janmaishwaraya Shruta Shibir. That a person who is too much attached to wealth, high birth, physical beauty, or very high education cannot feelingly call out your holy name because they become proud. Akinchana Gochru. That means even if you have high wealth, even if you have high birth, wealth, education, and all of this, if we understand nothing is mine, then we could call out Krishna's names with feelings. So God has appeared within his name. Nam Nama Kariba Nija Sarva Shaktis. Krishna has appeared in his name. And he has many names. And within these divine names, he has invested all of his powers, all of his potencies. Trinada Bisunichena. If we have a humble heart and we call out these names in any situation with gratitude, Krishna will reciprocate and give us himself. Krishna is showing us here, he worships the devotee who worships him with such a humble and grateful heart. Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, they gave great scholars and simple, uneducated people the holy names of the Lord. It didn't matter, whoever they were. And if they saw that they were chanting with humble hearts, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda would touch their feet, embrace them, give them garlands, and say, I am your property. In this spirit, Srimad Bhagavatam is teaching us to chant the holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare. I would like to introduce two very dear friends who have come from long distance of Woodstock, New York. They are two of the most empowered yoga teachers in the world. And they have founded a yoga studio which has teachers and branches all over the world. And they're wonderful devotees and beautiful people who really try to give something with very deep substance. They're very powerful animal rights activists and human rights activists also. Sometimes people are animal rights activists, but they're not nice to people, to human people. But if we actually understand animals are people and humans are also people, then we actually extend as God's grace, instruments of God's grace, compassion to all. And this is the very heart of their mission, is to teach these values of devotion along with the very incredible system of yoga as well. And they were very dear friends of our dear brother Shamdas Ji, who you remember stayed with us a few years ago at Radha Gopinath Temple. They regularly would visit him at Govardhan and Vrindavan and Gokul and Natwar. And at this time, about 80 students are at Govardhan Eco Village for a teacher's training. They're there for 1 month. And Padma Devi and David Life are the leaders of this wonderful Jiva Mukti Society, and very, very dear friends. And it was always a dream of mine that they would be here with us in Mumbai. I'm so grateful that both of you are here. Please be part of our family here forever. And everyone who would like them to be a part of our family forever, very lovingly and loudly chant Haribol. 10 million times louder, please. Is there any questions? As sure as the sun rises every morning and the sun sets every evening, Ananda Vrindavan will always have a question after
Maharaj, talking about the Pandavas, we know that they are pure devotees and they have gone through so many difficulties and hardship in their life. But when the difficulties came to Yudhishthir Maharaj, a stage came in Yudhishthir Maharaj's life also, where Yudhishthir Maharaj complained to Krishna that Krishna, why you are putting so much difficulties on us? Yashaha mani grinani, he spoke that thing. So that thing, we being a conditioned soul, we take shelter of that thing in our life. That when Yudhishthir Maharaj also complains to Krishna, when difficulty comes in our life, it's very natural that we will also complain to Krishna. And in that circumstances, our commitment and our dedication goes down in Krishna consciousness because we are taking shelter of that thing. So what to do when difficulties come in our life? We don't take that shelter and we just take it as Krishna's mercy and don't do as a complaint, but take as a Krishna's mercy and go ahead. Because that is always that we take shelter of that thing and we go away from giving 100% commitment to Krishna consciousness and taking a shelter of that thing in our life.
Thank you, thank you. That's a problem, when we take one little piece but we don't see the whole picture. So we want to do what Yudhisthira did as far as asking a serious question to our Krishna, which sounds like complaining. But what about the rest of it? He asked Krishna, why is all this happening? And Krishna said, Yasyaham anagrinami harishetatanam shanai. The Yudhisthira Maharaj, when I show my favor to my devotee, I give whatever he wants. But when I give my complete favor, I take away everything. So that devotee has nowhere else to turn to except me. Now, what does that mean? Take away everything. It doesn't. It may mean that Krishna takes away everything materially, or it may mean he doesn't take away anything material. Eventually, time does. Krishna says, time I am. But what Krishna is explaining is, when there is impediments in the heart of my devotee, I'm actually offering myself. And as long as we're dependent on material conditions, we never really take shelter of Krishna. Just like if you're in an airplane and all of a sudden, there's alarms. I've been in airplanes like this, where they say, we're about to crash. Emergency landing. Yes? What are you going to do? You're in an airplane. The engines and the control system of the airplane breaks down and you're about 30,000 feet above sea level. It's not that you can call your fire department or your police department or your life coach teacher. The plane's going down. There's nothing. You're totally helpless. Yes? In such a state, what do? The first thing you may do is say, Krishna, why are you doing this to me? That's natural. That's what Yudhisthira did. Why are you doing this to me? But then you realize, if Krishna's doing it to me, that means Krishna must be there for me. And then with all your heart, all your life, all your soul, you just give your body, mind, heart, and soul to Krishna in that state. And you cry. It's not that you're chanting like falling asleep. Because usually in airplanes, everyone's falling asleep. Yes? It's not like... In that state, you actually take shelter. And if the plane crashes, you attain the life's perfection and you go back to Krishna's eternal abode. So that's journey home and the fast lane. Huh? And if the plane somehow or other lands safely, you'll never forget it. You will definitely think for the rest of your life, that was the most spiritual I've ever been in an airplane. It's the best flight of my life. I never want it to happen again, but it was the best flight of my life. Never felt so close to God. Yes? So Yudhisthira took shelter. So he's asking the question to be like us, but then he's also responding to show us what we're supposed to do. So it's not a problem when we say, God, why are you doing this? Even Jesus, when he was on the cross, he cried, why have you forsaken me, my Father? But that was in the ecstasy of separation. It wasn't in bewilderment. And similarly, Yudhisthira Maharaj had complete faith in Krishna. It was just his human nature speaking that. But the lesson he's giving us is how he spoke it and how he lived when he received Krishna's message. Similarly with Arjuna, in the battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna was bewildered. He was instructing Krishna. Krishna, I'm not going to fight, and he was giving all the reasons. And then he became so completely overcome by the circumstance that he started to cry. He dropped his bow Gandiba and said, Karpanya doso bhatasva bhava. Krishna, I don't know anything. Please instruct me. So Arjuna's playing the role of us. And in certain cases, Duryodhana's playing the role of us. The dark parts within our own life of envy and everything, we can see them, we can picture what they are in Duryodhana. And when we read about Duryodhana, we're disgusted with him. Yes? And in the same way, we see what the end result is. And those same qualities within us, we can see that Duryodhana propensity, and therefore we don't trust them, we don't give in to them. We take shelter of our Yudhisthira propensities. Does that answer your question?
Maharaj, sometimes that phase is a little bit more extended. And that extension phase is making our spiritual life more disturbing and not getting that full commitment to take shelter of Krishna. So when that phase which is getting too much prolonged, we have a fear that we might lose that attachment to Krishna and we might lose this charm of Krishna consciousness. So what to do that phase should not be so big enough in our life. And we get it and we immediately take it a shelter of Krishna. That is not coming up.
It's not such a long time. What is a lifetime, 2 lifetimes, 10 lifetimes? The soul is eternal. But at the same time, what is important is we know what we want to do. We want to take shelter. And if it's taking more time, which it usually does, it's the way the world works, it means that we need that much purification. And we're aware of that. It humbles us. It's like a little child. Parents gives the child medicine, which is good for them, but the children don't like it. And if the parent gives you medicine for, due to a disease for several weeks, when will it be ended? When will it be ended? But the important thing is you take the medicine. Satsang, sadhana, seva, that's the medicine. It really doesn't matter how long. If we have faith, which comes by hearing in the association of people with faith, then we will continue to take that medicine. We will continue to take shelter, however long it takes. And that is our sincerity. Krishna knows just what we need. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.